Hey y'all, today I'm going to be talking about The Whisper Man by Alex North. It is a thriller, and so I'm not going to talk too much without spoilers, just because I feel like anything that I say could be considered a spoiler, but I will say this. It's kind of short, very short and concise, but I feel like the way the author wraps up everything and brings the entire story together and all the little elements and pieces together was a really good job. So I would definitely give it 3 stars. I know on the infographic that I'm going to place up, I think I don't even have it rated on that little bookly infographic that I've got, but I did enjoy it. So 3 stars, so it's a good solid read. I would definitely suggest it for a thriller. I don't want to go into too many details, but it does follow a father and a son. And like I said, the main thing that I liked about this book was just the author bringing everything together in the end. It actually only took me 8.5 hours, roughly. I'll have the time is on the infographic. So it was actually a pretty short read. I was able to go through it pretty fast. The spacing is really nice, and not too small, very nice and spaced out. So the pages just seem to kind of just really go by. I read it in about a week. So I really enjoyed it. 3 stars. Definitely go ahead and read it if you enjoy thrillers and whodunits. I said the killer wasn't quite as interesting as he could have been, but what really drives the book home is the author's way of bringing everything together. So we're just going to go ahead and kind of get into spoilers. I know it's really early, but like I said, this is a thriller, and it's hard to talk about thrillers without spoiling anything. So I guess before we officially get into spoilers, I'll just say if you are going to read this book, just this is one of those books where I feel like if you did DNF it halfway through, you're missing a lot of the good parts of the book, because it's almost like Brandon Sanderson, like the first half it may feel really slow, but by the end you're like, this is why it was slow. So, and I don't think this book was slow by any means, but I'd give it to the end of the book to really get that twist in there and see if you enjoy it. But to me, it wasn't slow. I really flew through it, and I found it interesting. It gave me chills several times, like I said. So, yeah. So, now that we're into spoilers, I will say that Tom, who is the father, every time that he told his son, "Of course you can," as a parent, I really enjoyed that, because I know a lot of parents, especially with books or movies, TV shows, some parents can just be really dismissive of their kids. Like, can I go out and play? And they just dismiss them, or they tell their kid no all the time, even for things that really seem simple. And so I really love how Tom constantly tells his son, "Of course you can," when he wants to do something. Like, "Can I draw?" "Of course you can." And of course it's within reason. He doesn't always just say, "Of course you can," but he really lets his son be himself. And I feel like him saying, "Of course you can," just gives his son a sense of comfort, a sense of trust, a sense of reliability in his father. And I really enjoyed that. And so when D.I. Willis says that, it grips you right in the heart a little bit, because, like father, like son. It's just such a great moment in the book. So I was disappointed in Karen when you find out that she's a reporter, but I am glad that she didn't turn out to be like your stereotypical reporter, because most times, and that's what I expected out of this book. Honestly, I expected him to discover that she was a reporter, and for her to use the story, the details that he gave her, to get herself, ahead. And I feel like a lot of shows and books, they do kind of write journalists as these heartless people, depending on the perspective of your story, because you either have journalists are going to be heartless people that just will do anything to get a story, even if it's nasty and mean and morally gray, or just downright terribly rude, to get ahead. Or if you're on the journalist's side in the perspective, they're doing these things, but it's for the greater good. The people need to hear this story. So it's kind of, it was an interesting twist. I don't want to say twist. can't say twist in a thriller. But it was an interesting character arc for Karen to just generally seem to really like him. And she didn't turn into that stereotypical journalist where she used him for his story and things. So I enjoyed that. Now, the killer being Francis. I feel bad for Francis, I really do. You know, he has a terrible father, and I get that. A lot of people have terrible fathers, and they don't turn out to be killers. So sometimes I feel like the whole daddy issue thing is really overplayed. It's played out, but I also know that a lot of people tend to actually blame their fathers or their mothers or whoever in their family for doing terrible things to people. So it felt a bit cliche, but like I said, the way the book is written is what really lifts that clichéness up. It lifts it for me. If the writer hadn't done that, I probably might have even gone with a 2-star just because of the killer, but the writing was just really good, and the story giving me chills really helped, and I think that's what ultimately matters, because at least the killer does make sense. It's not just some random person that came from nowhere. So I really like that. I did enjoy that, and I feel like if I was a better reader, I probably could have picked up on who is the killer before it's revealed in the book. But I know I've talked about this with you guys. I'm kind of along for the ride whenever authors write. So thrillers, most of the time, I don't want to say it catches me off guard or it surprises me, because sometimes I can kind of guess it, but for the most part, I'm along for the ride for when the author tells me that's when they want me to know, and that's just how I take it. So I was a little surprised at the killer, but overall I still really liked this book. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was a quote that was in the book, and this quote, it really called to me back to old days, because I used to feel this way a lot, and so it kind of brought me back to those old days when I struggled with depression, and I'm glad that I don't feel that way now. I'm doing better with it, so I don't have the same outlook, but when I read the quote, it really brought me back to those really dark times, and it's just very apt. So I'm going to go ahead and read it word for word. It says, "Tomorrow is always a new day, but there's never any reason to think it will be a better one." And in my worst days, I felt like that a lot, and especially when I was younger and kind of being rebellious, and adults would tell me it's going to get better, I would just say, why? It hasn't been better up until this point, so why would it get better suddenly, but as an adult now and kind of weathering through those times, I really hate that I felt that way a lot, and so I just really felt bad when I read that, because it's, I know a lot of people do still feel that way, and it's difficult to know that people are struggling, and if you are one of those people, I wish you the best, and I hope that you can weather this storm and come out on the other side and realize that there are going to be better tomorrows. And I just wanted to end on that note. So this is for a better tomorrow, and that's what I'm hoping and wishing for. Y'all take care.